levels 3, 4, and 5 of those paths, because those projects are where the rubber hits the road. Those projects are where those paths differentiate. That, if you choose them, can move you forward on a life goal. Let me give you for instance.
Next up is Kyle. Our district has been working with Pathways for 1.5 years now. Our last presenter this morning grew up in the Toastmasters legacy system. That's the books that everyone's talking about. He was marinated in it, but the legacy had some flaws. When Toastmasters International offered us a new system in an attempt to fix those flaws, Kyle decided to have a little faith and jumped in with both feet. Since then, he has learned that the Pathways system has some really neat features and some challenges. This morning, he will tell us one of his most recent realizations, that Pathways can serve us in advancing our own life goals in very interesting ways. Telling us about finding the mother lode, making Pathways serve you. Please help me welcome Kyle Hall.
Can you hear me? Good, it's working. Last year, as you may know, I was district director. And as district director, I had to be communicating all the time. And I was working through my path that happens to be visionary communication. And I hit level 3. And if you notice level 3, the requirement there is develop a communication plan. Well, I had worked through level 1. And, icebreaker speech, okay. Project 2, I described that a few minutes ago. Speech, evaluation. Project 3 in level 1, research and present. I've done those before. And then level 2 was talk about your communication style, talk about your leadership style, and talk about a mentoring experience. Three more speeches. None of those were, in my mind, a lot of work. That was a lot of work. That was a challenge. I sat and I pondered for quite a while what element of communication I was going to work on. Then I was challenged to actually write up a plan, execute the plan, and come back and present to my club about the plan and how it worked and what I learned about the process. The presentation was the easiest part of the process. That was some work. That's a serious project. And what I discovered, I'd kind of intuited this a little bit as the current VP of my club, when I'm orienting a new member, and I'm telling them, you have to choose a path. Well, most of them look like, well, how do I do that? What I tell them is think about your life goals and go look at levels 3, 4, and 5 of those paths, because those projects are where the rubber hits the road. Those projects are where those paths differentiate. But going through developing your communication plan really drove this point home for me. That's a serious piece of work that would help any professional who has to develop a communication plan. Going through this project would help them. And here's the point I want to make. There are projects in level 3, level 4, and level 5 that, if you choose them, can move you forward on a life goal. Let me give you for instance. A gentleman I'm mentoring, he has a job, but he wants to become a visual artist. He's a photographer, he's a good photographer, he wants to become a visual artist. He wants to do this professionally. Just getting started in Pathways. So he'd done his icebreaker. I said, well, you're going to work on project number 2, where you're going to develop a speech and then make it better. So what speech do you think, as a photographer, as a visual artist, what speech would be useful to be able to give to the public? Because you're going to make it good. You're going to take that speech and improve it and make it. Why not choose something you'd actually give to the public? You're going to do a research and present speech. Why not choose something that you need to research? What do you need to know about? Well, maybe you need to learn about how a person built, what the different styles of photography businesses work. how different people make money in that. Maybe you need to research what you need to know in order to become a visual artist like your heroes, whoever they are. And research and present that to us. Then, when you get to your level 2 and you have to talk about your leadership, you have to talk about a leadership style. It doesn't have to be your leadership style. It could be somebody else's leadership style. Talk about a photographer who's a hero of yours and their style. And mentoring, same thing. And then you get into the really interesting projects in 3, 4, and 5. And it's like, as a visual artist, what do you need to do? Well, maybe you want to blog on photography. There's a blogging project. Okay, maybe you don't want to blog on photography. Maybe you want to create an event, a photographic event. Well, there are some fairly generic projects like run a project, or an even bigger generic project, run a high performance leadership, which is a full project where you have to build a team of people to accomplish things. So you can take those and you can apply them to anything. I'd like to give you an example of this here and now. So I'm going to ask, is there somebody here who'd volunteer to be a guinea pig? And this is what you need to do. You need to be able to tell me what path you're working. Hopefully you're in level 1 or level 2, not all the way up in level 5. And you need to have a life goal, something you'd like to achieve. Anybody here? Okay, Marcy. So Marcy, just come sit here. I'm going to go over and drive the computer. What path are you working, Marcy?
Innovative planning.
Innovative planning, and where are you in it?
Level 1.
Okay, now we need to give you a microphone. Innovative planning, level 1, and what is your life goal? What do you want to do?
I want to be a paralegal.
A paralegal, okay. So on the back, let me take out a moment. On the back of your agenda, I need an agenda. On the back of your agenda, you have a handout. The top third are the links for Jean's presentation. The middle third is from Lindy's presentation and a link. The bottom third are the links I think you need to have. And the Choosing Your Project worksheet I'll bring up in a minute. But we're going to look at D4 paths and projects. You can go into pathways on the TI website and you can look at levels 3 and 4 and 5. You can. But as we've indicated, some people have problems with computers. It tends to be a little slow. If you're going to open up a project, it takes a while to load. I like going to the D4, District 4, Paths and Projects website because everything's there in short, fast, easy to access method. So we're looking at innovative planning, and you're on level 1. Now, level 1, have you done research and presenting yet?
Not yet. That's my next one.
Okay. So can you think of a topic that you could research and present that might be useful to somebody who wants to become a paralegal?
How the law office works.
Interesting, how a law office works. That would be an interesting topic. Another one might be, how do you choose what paralegal school you're going to go to? Another one might be, how much do paralegals make and what's the job outlook for them? You can see where I'm going here. You can take this in a dozen different directions. What do you want to learn? Learn it and then present it. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look at level 2. Now in level 2, understanding your leadership style. This is mostly about you do an assessment of your leadership style, and you can talk about your leadership style, or you can talk about the leadership style of somebody you admire. Do you have a paralegal or legal person in your life that you admire that you could talk about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there's a potential. Connecting with your audience. I haven't read this project. I have my own theories about how to connect with an audience. One of the chief ways to connect with an audience is storytelling. Can you come up with a story that has to do with being a lawyer or paralegal, how law benefits people?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, that would be really good to have under your belt when you go for a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
Toastmasters mentoring. Lindy already talked about that, but you're going to be talking about a mentoring experience, either when you mentored somebody or somebody mentored you. that may or may not have anything to do with paralegal. Maybe it does. So let's look at level 3. Present a proposal. That's the required, and then you have the electives down below. Present a proposal. Project includes how to select key information to present in a proposal to build a case for supporting evidence and realistic solutions. I'm thinking, and I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but if you were going to be a paralegal working in a law office, you might need to present a case for expanding the paralegal department or paying for paralegal training. You could you can make this up as you go. If you're working for a company that doesn't have a legal department, you might want to make a case for getting some paralegals in house. Mm-hmm. Does any of this sound like it might be
Yes.
potentially useful?
Yes.
Okay.
Because ongoing training is what we always need because the law constantly changes.
Sure. Now, this is going to be you'd have to do some work here to build it up because they're going to want some numbers. You have to support your case. And if you go down to the electives, there's things here that may not serve your goal, but there's certain things that would. I mean, effective body language is going to be useful for anyone who presents. Mm-hmm. Preparing for an interview,
That would help.
That might help.
Yeah, you want to get the job, right?
Yeah. Active listening. Do you actually know how to active listen? Can you demonstrate that? Could you talk about active listening to people in an interview so they know, so you have it? Know your sense of humor. Do you want your lawyers to be humorous? It might be a good idea.
Well, you certainly want your judges to be humorous.
Yeah. Making connections through networking. Project focuses on how to network effectively and understand the importance of being a professional ally to people in the network. Now, if you wanted to actually expand your network of paralegals and lawyers, that might be a good project.
That would definitely be a good project.
Yeah. So let's move up to level, because you only need to do 2 electives. Let's move up to level 4. Manage projects successfully. This is one of those ones I mentioned that's generic. And the project could be big, project could be small. It could be one club member took we were going to run an open house in my club, and it was 3 or 4 months out. She said, "I'm going to run the open house. And I'm doing it as this project." Manage project successfully. All she did was she ran a normal meeting that we publicized, and we had a few guests. But she ran it, and she was the Toastmaster, and that was her project. So it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to build a building here. On the other hand, you could do something, and I should look at the requirements.
Kyle?
Yes?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Could that also include doing a Toastmaster Leadership Institute?
Oh, definitely. Now, this project, this member development day, is in high performance leadership for me. Now, high performance leadership is a little bit bigger structure than manage this. If you have a small project, you can use the manage project successfully thing. But if you're going to have a big project with a big team, I would wait until you have a high performance leadership that you have to do, which usually comes up in level 5. So you can see this could be used in a number of different ways. Now, creating a podcast, that might be useful. Social media presence. Well, a lot of people think of this creating a social media presence for a club or an organization. Maybe you want to create a social media presence for yourself as a paralegal. Managing a difficult audience. Do you think a paralegal is ever going to have to manage a difficult audience?
Definitely.
Yeah. Somebody's going to be cranky in that law office. Write a compelling blog, maybe not. Managing online meetings, that's a possibility. You could certainly have online meetings. Dealing with questions and answer sessions. Public relations strategies, how to deal with the public.
Usually the secretary or the paralegal is the first one to greet the public.
Yep. So let's go up to level 5. There's that high performance leadership. It's a requirement. You have to do one. And then there's reflect on your path. Everybody gets to reflect on your path in level 5. And there's things like lessons learned, moderate a panel, ethical leadership. Do you think a paralegal might want to do a session on ethical leadership?
Definitely.
Would that be useful? Might be useful. Leading in a volunteer organization. Gee, could you do that as a club officer? Could you get credit for being a club officer or an area director or division director by leading in your organization? Sure, you could. But you could also use it to move yourself forward. If you joined a paralegal association and volunteered to be an officer, you get credit for that. Moderating a panel. We'd have to figure out what the panel discussion would be, but you could do that.
Correct. But
Okay.
I like the last one there. It says, prepare to speak professionally.
Yes. This project is designed to help you define the attributes of a professional speaker and apply that understanding to your own skills. So you would prepare an 18 to 22-minute speech, probably on something that people would need to know about law. Not necessarily, you might be how to become a paralegal, but it might be, hey, here's legal things that your average person needs to know that you could give anywhere. You could give it in a chamber of commerce, you could give it at a church, you could give it at a service club, and it gives you visibility and publicity and makes you valuable to the law office, especially if someone hearing your talk wants to then hire the law office to represent them. You know, a perfect example of a talk like this might be, how do you choose a lawyer? Based on what you're going to do. Now, thank you, Marcy. Can we have a hand for Marcy? I've tried to demonstrate that the Pathways projects that are here can be useful to moving your life skills forward. It takes a little creativity. It might take a little brainstorming. If you're a new member, I wouldn't worry. You don't get too upset about what levels 3, 4, and 5, what they look like right now. Talk to your mentor. If you're a mentor, think about this. If you're mentoring somebody and they're telling you what their goals are and why they joined Toastmasters, maybe they joined your club for a reason beyond just getting over their fear of public speaking. Maybe they want that next job. Maybe they want to change their career. Maybe they want to, move into government or move into public service. Think about how these projects can be applied to their path. It will help you in advising and mentoring them. And when you're looking at your own path, think about how you can use these projects, how you can use them either to serve your club, to serve Toastmasters, and most importantly, to serve your own personal goals. Because Toastmasters is here to help make leaders, but not so you can be a better leader here in Toastmasters. We're here to help make leaders so you can go out into the world and make a difference. Any questions? Joanna.
Kyle, as you were walking through innovative planning with Marcy and her life goal of being a paralegal, as her mentor, would you not recommend that she choose a different path that might be more in line with what her goal was?
I would have to.
It might not be the exact.
I would have to have that conversation. I did not think of that. I did not consider that in this instance because I was more concerned with how could you apply the goal you chose. I don't have an opinion right now as to whether this is the most effective path for somebody who wants to be a paralegal. I think we'd have to talk. One of the things you should be aware of, if you've chosen a path, you used to have 30 days in which to change the path without having to pay. It's now 90 days, which is nice. It's still 3 months, but it gives you a chance to dive into the path and look at it before you have to go, And if you don't like your path, if you chose a path and it's 6 months later and, I just don't like this path and that one over there looks better, it's only $25 to get another path. And you're talking about the equivalent education of maybe 2 years of college for $25. So, Michael?
We talked a lot about how level 1 and 2 are similar.
Yes.
All paths.
Yes.
Do we make people choose paths too soon? Could they actually start on level 1, level 2, as you want, saying, and then support making that choice a little later after I know a little bit more?
Well, theoretically, that might be possible, but the tool won't let you do that. So you have to take that up with TI. I'm going to give control back to David.